Woo! And absolutely. I love it. I love it. So today is April 26th, which is a good thing that I double checked because I was all last week on April 19th, but we've already done that. So that's just how my Monday's going. But you are listening or watching the recording of Through the Eyes of Authors. And tonight we have Ken Marsh, and the Sandy Lawrence is back tonight to introduce our speaker. So I'm going to go ahead and let Sandy take it away. So go for it.
Thank you. It's so good. I love it when I have a reason to be here on Monday nights, since I'm not here every Monday night now, but I love being here on Mondays or Fridays for the mastermind. So Ken, we not only have this on Monday nights, we have a mastermind that meets on Friday. And this is all part of the group, the membership group called Through the Eyes of Authors. So everyone that's a member of this group gets all kind of special bonuses, and including any course that Amy and I develop and put up for sale. This group gets it free, and which we're getting ready to do one. That's why I mentioned that, because Amy and I are getting ready in the month of May to teach a course called Social Media Made Simple. And I was looking when Amy and I got on early, and I was looking through some of the things we're going to be giving to each one of you that attend. And there's a lot. There's an ebook that comes with the course. There's a special cheat sheets. There's calendars. There's schedules. There's all kind of stuff. And one of the things that we're going to be doing is teaching this like we did our podcast that Amy and I started a few years ago. Well, I don't know if it was a few years ago, but a year or so ago, called The Matriarch and the Millennial. So you have to know that if I'm teaching social media, it's like, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn. Those are the ones I know. Those are the ones I'm very familiar with. I'm on some of the others. I'm on, what is the one I can never remember the name of it, Amy? It's Clubhouse. Clubhouse. I'm on Alignable. I'm on all these that I don't even know the names of. I have the apps on my phone. I check in with them regularly. Today, I got a notice from the Alignable people that I'd had 130 new people follow me since last week. And I'm like, I don't even know who's following me. I'm not even sure I know how to find out who's following me. But, so that's going to be the millennial part of our training, is going to be to talk about all these new opportunities, new things going on, and how you can use the social media and all the tools we're going to give you. You can use that to promote your book, to sell your book. So we'll be working on that for the month of May. And so I wanted to mention that because Wednesday night, day after tomorrow, we're going to do a Facebook Live at 5 o'clock in the afternoon, and we're going to be talking about this. So you'll be hearing about it, and we want you to join us. If you have any questions, be prepared. If you have any suggestions, all of the deal, it'll be one of our normal Facebook Lives. So can't wait to see you and tell you what all we've been cooking up in my spare time. Amy doesn't have as much spare time as I do now, so but I have lots of spare time. I can tell you anything you want to know about Grey's Anatomy, because I'm getting caught up on that, because I never wanted to get started on that while I was working, because it was always too much going on. So anyway, tonight though, I am very excited to bring you a very special guest. And I'm glad we'll be recording this. This will be in the Facebook group. So I met Ken. So when I first started, you've all heard me say I networked. That was my job. And honestly, if I'd gotten paid for networking, I would have a much more affluent lifestyle than I do, because I was networking like crazy. And so I went to every networking class I heard about, all this training. But one of the very first things I ever went to, so I started my company in July of 2002, And in November 2002, I met two people that started an organization called Houston Networking News. And they were very, very gung ho about it. And I met with them a few times. And I decided that I was going to invest money in sponsoring them for the first year that they were in business. So it wasn't cheap. And I never had planned to spend that much money on anything. I never had in my entire life spent that much money on anything. However, I did see where it would give me, it had a lot of advantages. And the big thing was, as my new mantra for 2021, be visible. It was the best way I could see to be visible among all of the businesses and all of the events going on in Houston. So I signed up, and I think, Ken, you were like the very first, at the very first one we had, where I was working with them and was their sponsor. As a sponsor, I got to speak at every event, and they always introduced me. And so there was a lot of perks that went with it. And one of the biggest perks I got was meeting Ken Marsh, and he was speaking on fearless networking. And one of the things I learned, that networking was, and I learned this from Ken, that networking was not about going to this meeting and handing someone my business card and telling them all about me. That's what networking, that was not networking. Networking was me going to find out all about you and what I could do. Once I found out about you, then what could I do to help you grow your business? And now that I work with authors, help you sell your books, help you publish your book. But it was never about, hey, here I am, Sandy Lawrence, Perceptive Marketing, and here's what I want to do for you. It was never about my services. It was never about anything other than me. Go find out who you are, what is your goals, and how can I help you? And I learned that from Ken Marsh. And Ken went on. Not only he's written the same book and updated it a few times. And then while we were meeting together, he got his certification as part of the what's his name again? Ken, I always forget his
Dale
name.
Carnegie.
Dale Carnegie. So if you've ever read the book, How to Win Friends and Influence People, if you've not ever read that book, it's a great book. Very, very much to help you how you can help people. And Ken is a certified trainer for them. And he's just done a lot with the city of Houston. He still does training and coaching for Houston Networking News and that organization, as well as a lot of other corporations in the city of Houston. So Ken, come on and tell us all about the fearless networking, or whatever you want to talk to us about tonight.
Oh, whatever I want to talk about. Okay.
Whatever
I want
you
to talk
want to
about fearless networking.
Oh,
Okay.
okay, good. Okay.
Okay. And actually, you almost gave my entire presentation, but you just reminded me some of the things I want to talk about more.
Okay, good, good.
Okay, well, let's start off with, and I like to start off with a definition of business networking, because it is different than fearless networking. A lot of people have fear and reluctance to network. And so tonight, you're going to get some pointers on how to overcome the fear of networking and the reluctance we have in reaching out to other people. So I wrote this book called Fearless Networking. And then, like Sandy mentioned, I updated it several times, but let's come up with a definition. And I like to use this definition for business networking. And then I'll show you how it changes when we talk about fearless networking. So business networking is building relationships with the intent to provide helpful advice, useful information, recommendations to people or for people, and referrals with people that you come in contact with. And once you come in contact with, we talk about how to build that relationship where that trust, people do business with people that, like Sandy mentioned before, that they know, like, and trust. And so you can build that trust, and just in reaching out to people at the very beginning when you're out networking. I originally wrote the book was face-to-face networking because we were doing a lot back then, face-to-face networking. Then the pandemic happened. And so we do a lot of Zoom networking, which really is the principles work with that too. Zoom, social media networking is still building relationships. In fact, it's great to be able to see the person that you're networking with, right? Because you can look at them and see whether they're interested in you. You can mirror their body language. And so there's a lot of effectiveness that occurs when we meet people through Skype, through Zoom, through different types of face-to-face networking over the internet or internet networking. Let's put it that way. So the definition again is building relationships with the intent to provide helpful advice, useful information, recommendations, referrals, or people you can count on to do the same. People that you come in contact with, you're going to eventually have a relationship where it's not one-sided. Networking isn't one-sided. It's really helping each other. And when you have that, you won't feel like someone is just trying to use you to get your contacts, because you have an agreement that we're going to work together and we're going to help each other in our professional life and in our business life, and then sometimes in our personal life. Because we mentioned about some a water damage to someone's house today, and I was able to provide a plumber for the person, and that person really appreciated it because they had gotten a bid for $5,000, and I got a bid for $2,500, and they actually had references that, and they're doing a terrific job. She's very pleased. So it's providing that helpful information to other people. Now, when I talk about fearlessness and how I changed that definition, before I give you the definition for fearless networking, let me mention something. I had 3 people that influenced me to write my book, Fearless Networking, and they actually helped me with the definition of fearless networking, and helped me to really broaden my book. And so the first person I like to mention is Michael Oliver. He's an author of a book called Natural Selling. And Michael has a saying that really struck home with me. And that is, my anxiety increases when I focus on me. My anxiety and stress increases when I focus on me. My anxiety and stress decreases when I focus on you. So that's something to remember. Sometimes we're fearful because we're thinking about how I'm looking, how I'm sounding, how I'm coming across on the Zoom, or how I'm coming across face to face, how I'm coming across speaking in front of this group. And you're so concerned about that's fearful thinking. But if you think about how can I help or contribute, like Sandy mentioned, when you walk into a networking meeting or business after hours or even a Writers Guild meeting, you want to say that, how can I help or contribute to the people in this room? It could be just a smile. It could be a friendly advice like I mentioned before, or helpful information to them. So it's important to understand that your anxiety increases when you're just spending all the time on you. And I try to get people not to even talk about themselves, like Sandy mentioned, right away. You do as little talking as possible. Did you know that 78% of all networkers are women? And I like to say 78% of all effective networkers are women, because women have certain qualities that really help networking. They're better listeners than some men. I had to learn to listen through Dale Carnegie. Listening is one of his principles. But I had to really learn. That's how I learned how to win friends and influence people. It's really a lot about listening. And I'm going to give you the real definition of listening, and how you're going to see how it applies to women even more so. And it makes them more effective at networking if they remember to use their listening skills. And also they're caring about other people and caring about helping people, caring about doing for others. So Michael Oliver was one person. Another person that really helped me, what you believe, and I did some of my first workshops for that group, was Mary Kay Ash, the Mary Kay Cosmetics. She passed away about 8 to 9, 10 years ago. And, but the business is still going strong. And what she did, and I even quote her on page 24 of my book, Fearless Networking. And I'll turn to page 24, but I know the saying by heart, but it looks like I'm just showing my book. Anyway, but on page 24, Mary Kay said that a young lady came to her and said, you know, Mary Kay, I love the products, but I have some difficulty sharing the products. Mary Kay didn't use the word selling. She likes to use sharing the products with people. I just had some difficulty doing it, but I love the products. But I have this fear of reaching out to others about the product. And Mary Kay said something that really formed the basis of the book, mainly about 80% of it based upon this saying. And she says that, and she told the lady, when she said she had this fear, she said, fear can only settle in when our focus is inward. Take your mind off of yourself and strive to help others. And when you've helped enough other people reach their goals, you'll find that you've reached your own goal. And thinking about that, you see, you focus on helping the other person, you will reach your own goal. There's a lot of people that don't do that. A lot of people think about, well, I'm going to this meeting to see how they can help me, or what I can get from this group, or who I can connect with so I can grow my business and build my business. And all that is secondary. Like Sandy mentioned earlier, it's all about helping the other person, helping the other person. That's a joy of giving. Give and ye shall receive. And it's not only a biblical saying, it's really, really works really well in networking. And so I mentioned Michael Oliver, I mentioned Mary Kay Ash. Another person you've heard of is Zig Ziglar. He's the one that got me into Dale Carnegie, Sandy. Zig, I saw him, I bought his book, you know, he had that pump talk where, you know, you pump and pump and pump and pump. You know, just all you do is just put a little pressure on it, and that water just flows, you know, in a water pump. He said you can get everything you want out of life by helping enough other people get what they want.
And one of the things I heard him say about the pump, because I went to visit his offices in Dallas,
right.
And he talked about having to prime the pump.
Right,
sometimes you have to prime it. And I got a lot out of that.
And once you prime the pump, it can go and flow on its own. It's just priming the pump. And you prime the pump by listening to other people, by becoming genuinely interested in other people. And you can get far, far, far in building that relationship. And it's going to help you to be less fearful and less reluctant to reach out. And it's all about reaching out to other people fearlessly by helping them. So Zig was the other person. I actually had his son on my radio show. I had a radio program. Remember that, Sandy?
I do. I was on there a few times.
Yes, you were. It's Christian Fearless Network. And actually, that show is coming back in a year.
Oh, wow. Are you going to be still doing it?
I'm going to be doing it. Fearless Christian Network. Yeah. And and I had his son. Well, actually, he was in the studio with R.D. Yoder that day because we shared the studios. He was on one end, I was on the other. But at any rate, so Zig's son is running a business now, and it's still a successful business. Now, another thing I'd like to talk about in networking is that we like to use the 80-20 rule. 80% listening and 20% talking. So if you remember that, you don't do a lot of talking when you're networking. You do more listening. You know, I tell several stories in my book where I can gain more by being at a networking meeting, just listening. I was the number one, according to my book in the back. Let's see if I remember that. Ken had the most. I was awarded in that BNI group I was in. I eventually became the president of BNI group. I was awarded uh, the most notable networker award for most referrals for 33 consecutive months, averaging 22 quality referrals a week.
Oh, wow. That is a
And,
lot.
and that, well, it is. And it was really, really based upon using these principles I'm talking about. I would sit in a meeting and I listen to what people say they wanted. And I immediately start thinking about, now who can help them? And I know someone that can help them. And so I write on my sheet, here's my referral. And they would contact me. And I knew these people already because I knew how well they networked. I knew how well they did their business, like this plumber I was telling you about. I know that that plumber is one of the better plumbers in Houston. So it's easy to network with people. I was actually, the interesting thing was I gave more referrals to real estate people because I knew how to get referrals for real estate, realtors, excuse me. They normally get their referrals from um, people in the title business, but they can get, I got referrals for them and nobody else in the group could do that. But well, every time I went to a doctor or to a barber, you talk to them, people will tell you when they're going to be moving. They'll tell those people, they'll tell a doctor or a dentist, or they'll tell someone at the barber shop or a hair salon that they're moving. And so that's how I got my referrals, because they knew who was looking for a house. So it's always good to listen and to listen into what people are saying. Now, someone asked me, and one of the questions I get from people often is, well, how do I pump myself up to network? Because before you start networking, even before you do your Zoom meeting, I do what I call a shakeaway. I get myself all pumped up and get ready for the meeting. And then you stay at that, you can only go up with your excitement. So you can tell that I'm speaking at a volume and a pace because I'm excited about what I'm talking about. Well, it came from pumping myself up. And that makes all the difference in the world. Another thing is I tell myself a self-affirmation talk before I give a presentation. It's like public speaking. I used to train people. Standing one of my first clients I had built a tollway for just about all of our tollway, her company. She came to me, her name is Nathalie Kennedy. In fact, she was the first African-American civil engineer, and she went to Prairie View A&M. But in 1962, she became the first female engineer graduate of that school. And so, but she's actually built a lot of the tollway. And she came to me one day, she said, Ken, I was meeting with her on how to overcome her fear. And she said, you know, I was praying before I got here, I was praying that I would have an accident so I would go to the hospital rather than meet with you. That's how nervous she was. Now this lady gives speeches for everyone. She had a speech to give at that time. Mayor Whitmire was the mayor, female Mayor Whitmire. Mm-hmm. And she said, I have to introduce her at this social that she's having. I said, well, you're going to do fine. I know you will. And I kind of gave her a belief that she can do it. Because I believed in her. Sometimes you have to believe in people before they can believe in themselves. And that's all a part of networking. You believe in the people that you reach out to, that you can actually help them and that they can actually do some things that they don't think that they can do. And that's all from the power of belief in them. So that's another thing that I did. But let me give you some of the basic rules of networking. And that's 4 that I use. And it's called the acronym. I like to use mnemonics, ALMS. So if you're taking notes, the A is for asking the right questions at the right time. Now, you can ask the right questions at the wrong time, and I'll explain that in a second. But asking the right questions at the right time. And those right questions are the who, what, when, where, why type questions. I like to use who, what, when, where, how. Because sometimes when you ask a certain question, people are going to say, well, why do you want to know? So I use who, what, when, where, how. And it gets the same result, the how type question. So asking the right questions, and then once you ask a question, it's incumbent on you to do what? Listen. So you ask the right question and you listen, and you need to listen attentively and actively to the people that you are helping. Listen attentively and actively. That's how you begin to build that common ground, how you build that bond between you and that person. Have a genuine interest in another person. Now, the definition of listening is is really wanting to hear. And that sounds strange because people say, well, you're not hearing me, or you're hearing me, but you're not listening to me. Well, listening is really wanting to hear. And what I mean by that, let's say that you were driving down the freeway, down 69, and you were headed toward Richmond or Rosenberg area, coming from the downtown area. And while you were driving down the freeway, you noticed that there was like a 2x6 board in the street across the freeway, all across one lane, and the other lanes were cars coming by, so you couldn't get over. So you knew you're gonna hit that board. And what happens when you think about that? You turn down your radio because you really want to hear. You might have been playing your best favorite song on a CD, but you turn it down to really hear, because what might happen? That board could have a nail in it. So you want to know whether you've hit that board and you got a nail in you. So listening is really wanting to hear the other person. Now, the next letter is M. So once you listen for people's needs, wants, and desires, or their goals, like Sandy mentioned. You listen for their goals, you listen for their needs. What do they want? And then what you want to do is, once you find out what those are, you help them by matching what they say, matching people in your network that can help them get what they need. So ALM, asking the right questions at the right time, listening attentively and actively to the other person to find out what their needs are, their issues are, their desires, their problems. I consider myself a problem solver, Sandy. If you get a copy of my business card, it has Fearless Network, CEO/problem solver. People say, why do you have problem solver on it? Because that's what I do. I'm a solution finder. I find problems for them. If with that attitude, I can help almost anybody, whatever their needs are, because I have an attitude, I'm looking for a solution for that person. It's not about me. It's about helping the other person, right? So M is matching it. And then S is sharing knowledge, sharing recommendations, sharing referrals with that person to help them, as well as you have that relationship, right? That bond you've developed, and they know that they're going to get back with you. So you want to be able to help them so they can turn around and give back to you. That's the joy of giving, like I mentioned before. So you have that attitude. Now, another thing that I like to talk about is there's another acronym, and that's I am for you. Now, when I tell people in workshops to write this down, I put the I, it's vertically written, I, and then I leave 3 or 4 spaces, then the A, 3 or 4 spaces, then F, I go spell it out, I am for you. Now, think about that. If you go into a meeting, a networking meeting, and you say, I am for you, just to yourself, it helps you to remember that you're focusing on that other person. And it overcomes a lot of fear, a lot of trepidation, a lot of worry, a lot of stress. I am for you. And the I is for introducing yourself. And when you introduce people and you're talking to people, sometimes they have a ring on their finger. And I used to tell people, you know how you can stop people from really, you ever had anybody shake your hand so hard on your ring finger that your ring pinched you? You have that happen? Where if you clasp their hand like this with your thumb and thumb, they cannot squeeze your finger. They can only squeeze the flesh, the palm of your hand. And then you don't have to worry about your fingers being crushed, your ring being pinched on your hand, on your finger. So it's how you reach out to other people and shake their hands. That's important. That firm handshake is important, but it shouldn't be a crushing handshake. There's a lot of men that like to crush hands. They can figure the stronger you shake, and it's not all about that. It's firmness, but not crushing, and that makes a big difference. You can turn a lot of people off by crushing their hands. And that man, you talk about eye contact. When you reach out to other people, you should look at them and have eye contact, right? Well, some men will stare and keep staring, and the first one to break the stare is the loser. So they're going to continue looking at each other. They might even follow themselves around the room looking, and that's not the way you have eye contact. Because when you're networking, you want to be able to listen to that person, and they know that you're listening to them, that you're genuinely interested in them, and that's when you look at them. But now if you have somebody else in a networking function, you want to be able to let them know that you need to move now and meet other people, because I came here. I really enjoyed meeting you. Let's get together to have coffee or tea, and we'll talk more about how we can help each other in our personal business and professional life. And then you'll move on to the other person, other people in the room that you need to come in contact with. I never would have gotten 33 referrals a week if I just stood with one people. Some people, they actually stay with the people they come with. You ever see people stay with their friends when they're networking, Sandy? Have you ever seen people stay with their friends when they're networking?
Yeah, I have people stay with me all the time.
Yeah, but you don't want them to do that. You want them to be able to reach out to other people.
Well, that's true. That is true.
And sometimes when they stay with you, there's a fear there of reaching out. A lot of people will wind up, if there's a buffet, they'll stay around the buffet table, because if they can eat something to keep from speaking to somebody, then they'll do that.
That is me. If you ever want to talk to me at a networking event, find where the food or the drinks are.
Tell you that
that's totally me.
Yeah,
I have events at my house all the time, and Ken, because I used to have a Christmas party.
Yeah, you had the best events. Yeah.
And we could have 100 people in my house at one time, and 99 of them will be around the island in my kitchen. And no matter what we do, we can put food everywhere, all over the house. They will still be standing in there.
And they're doing it because there's some fear. So, but if you practice what I've been talking about, just concentrating on the other person and not so much how you're coming across, you won't have that nervousness. You won't have to stick with people you come with, because you want to get out and reach other people, because there's a joy of giving once you get over yourself and get over, I'm doing this for me. You're doing this for other people. And it's going to help you. Like Michael Oliver says, your anxiety and stress decreases when you focus on the other person, when I focus on you,
That's a
it
great thing
increases
to
my focus
remember.
on
I
you.
don't remember hearing you say that before, and I love that.
Yeah. Well, other people, Carl Siniski came up with a saying that givers need to know their limits because takers don't have any. So they'll take, 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 take. And you don't want to be involved with people that's all they do is take, 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 take. Sometimes we want to, you give and give and give, and you can get worn out giving because people won't ever give back. When my networking group, I was giving those 33 referrals, I rarely got more than 1 or 2 referrals myself till I learned how to get referrals back from people.
Right.
Because I let them know, I met with them one-on-one, say, look, this can work really well if we help each other. I said, oh yeah, I'm sorry. I'll think about you next time. But you have to be able to get it coming back to you because takers will continue to take and they won't give. They won't want to give. So I am for you. Introduction, how you associated with the group. How are you associated with the Writers Guild or wherever the group might be in Florida or another Writers Guild or another networking group here in town or Amy's publishing company. How are you associated with them? And let people find out how you're associated with them. And then M stands for media story. You heard people say, you have small talk. You want to network, want to reach out to people. Well, use some small talk. Talk about what's going on in the media, but stay away from politics and stay away from religion. Now, why would I say that?
Because they're hot topics.
They are hot topics, and you can turn people off quickly.
Well, they're very controversial kind of topics. They
are controversial. So there's so many other things to talk about. And that's why I say talk about the weather, talk about what's going on in the news that's not political. What do you think about this Houston weather? I mean, we got up to 81 degrees and in the morning was 45. And that's something you can talk about. Everybody has to deal with the weather, right? And how did you handle that snowstorm we had in Houston? Well, some people had more snow than others, but still a -9 in Houston, real feel. Wow. So you talk about that. And the L stands for family. And when you meet people, don't ask them, well, are you married? Or do you have children? A lot of people do that. But what if I had a friend of mine that had 4 miscarriages? Mm-hmm. And so every time you ask her, if someone asks her about her children, it was just like a really emotional issue for her. So you want to say, what family do you have in the area? What family do you have in the area? And that really, they can tell you, I have, as they tell you that I have family in Chicago, you say, well, I have family in Chicago, or I have family in Birmingham, or I have family in Opelousas or Lafayette or New Orleans, wherever. That's something you can bond about. But when you say, do you have children? You're not really getting information. It's not, and you're not using a who, what, when, where, how either. What family do you have in the area? That's a W question, right? One of the W's. What family? Okay. Or when can we get together to have coffee or tea? That's a when. That's okay. So that's remember the 5 W's and it applies there. So I am for you. So the O is occupation. Now, most people when they first meet you, they want to know, well, where do you work? Right? That's one of the first questions they ask. Well, what do you do? And you don't want to answer that question yourself right away. You can tell them that, I'm a mentor and coach, or I'm a problem solver. but you don't have to get into explaining what you do. Because what happens when you start talking about what you do? Sometimes we get so excited about what we do, we forget all about the other person. You know, you just talk and until their eyes glaze over because you're talking about yourself. Yeah, it's good you're enthusiastic about yourself, or you're doing something you have passion with. That's good to have passion, but it's not good to keep talking on and on and on, because remember, listening is the key. It's the number one key to networking and selling, is listening, and listening effectively. So not only what family you have in the area, but your occupation. And then the R stands for, well, now you're a business coach or you're a publisher. What do you do for fun? Or what do you do when you're not being a publisher? That's an even better way of putting it. Because sometimes people make mistakes when you say, what do you do for fun? What do you mean? So when you're not being a publisher, what else do you do to relax? You know, to just relax. And then they can tell you that. So what do you do for fun? And so the you, I am for you. And the you is simply, when can you and I get together and have coffee or tea? You know, a lot of people used to meet at Starbucks, Sandy, and they still do. Panera Bread, we used to meet at Panera Bread, Sandy. You know, the only problem is people stay at those tables. They don't want to give up the seat. You have a whole crowd of people standing around waiting for somebody to, you know, because once you're sitting, it's just so easy to stay there and talk and talk and talk. In fact, they had to, some places you go to, you have to buy something. You can't just sit there. You know, the businesses became wise to that and said, now, you know, other people, other customers who really want to buy something need to have a seat, you know, and there's a way to do that too. Anyway, Sandy, I'm approaching my time. I'd like to leave some time for questions. I know you said I had from what time? Because I can go on and on.
You have till 8. You're good.
Oh, well, I'm good. Okay, well,
Yeah,
good.
good.
Are you guys getting any
Well,
good
you have
ideas?
so you have 15 minutes left. So depending on how much time you want to leave open for questions.
Well, yeah, but I'm going to have about 10 minutes for questions.
Okay.
Who has
okay.
the first question? Now, there's a reason why I ask it that.
Julie does. I was going to say, if not, then it's me.
Okay, who is it?
Julie.
Who has the first question? Okay, Julie.
You're muted, Julie. And Ken, this is the Julie that's going to be speaking for you on the 11th.
Oh, well, that's great. Well, Julie, I can't wait.
A lot of what you said really resonated with me, because although a lot of my acquaintances say that's just BS, I'm really an introvert. But my job for 33 years required me to go out and represent the U.S. Embassy at all kinds of events.
Right.
And from my very first reception, my very first job, I made it a habit just to march in. I would look around for a group of 4 or 5 men standing there with no women, and I would barge in there and introduce myself.
Okay.
And then afterwards, colleagues would say, well, how did you get to talk to the foreign minister or whoever it was? And I'd say, I just went up and introduced myself.
That's right.
But it's hard. It's really hard to do that.
Well, no, but you did great. And it's one of the principles I teach in my 4 workshops when I do it is Dale Carnegie, the author of he's called the father of human relations, but the author of, like Sandy mentioned, How to Win Friends and Influence People. He said he he was invited to a function one time, and the next day, the host called and asked him, say, what did you do? how did you have all these people talking with you? What did you say to these people? That's all they were talking about. The next day, they were talking about him. And he said, what did you say? And only thing he did was, like you said, he walked in and asked a question. And then he shut up and had them explain and talk to, tell them about themselves. And he said, I just asked, and what happened next? I listened to what they said. I said, what happened next? Okay. And then what happened next? And they say people will because people love to talk, they love to listen to themselves, by the way. They do.
So my question
They
really
actually
was,
believe themselves more than they believe anybody else. I'm sorry.
I didn't find it hard to barge in because
Right.
what I was doing was selling or talking about US government policies,
There you go.
not myself,
Right.
not myself.
Perfect.
So my question is, when what you're trying to sell is yourself or your book, it's very uncomfortable for me. It's very uncomfortable for me to talk about my book. And so my question is to you is, how do you get the topic around to saying, by the way, I've written a book and I'd really like you to read it or buy it or review it or whatever your goal is?
Well, here's what I do. And we do this in saying Dale Carnegie, they don't even want us to promote our book. I promote your book more than you would. When you come to speak and you have your book, I will be the one to promote your book. So you need to have someone else to promote it. Even if you're nervous about promoting yourself, you get someone else to talk about it. We have a person in the group, Doris St. Cyr is the contact that will probably be contacting you about the presentation on May 11th and she will be Doris St. Cyr, STCYR, two words, St. Cyr. She abbreviated Saint, so St. Cyr. That's her last name, Doris. And Doris said, Ken has this book called Fearless Network. I never said a word about my book. She did. And I wound up selling all my books that I had there because I didn't sell it. She did. And she will tell you, she always said, well, how much is your book, Ken? And then I didn't say it. She asked me, so I'm going to tell her, right? And so, and certain groups I give a discount to. It depends on the group. But I never give, see, Amazon, when you're selling books through Amazon, our publisher knows this, they like to take 40%. They have sort of like a 40% royalty on your book almost. The way what they charge you to promote your book. That's why I'd rather go to a publishing person like Amy than to go through Amazon. Now, I go through Amazon only because some people won't trust your book being a legitimate book unless you're on Amazon. Does that make sense? They just won't. So okay, I'll put it on Amazon. But I sell more books the way I'm telling you myself. All that functions, so I might have my books out, and people find, they like the name Fearless Networking. I did not come up with that name. I had a contest in my BNI group for the best name, and they voted on it, and they came up with Fearless Networking. And I hadn't even written a book yet. So I said, well, if it's Fearless Networking, I need to find out something about fear and how to overcome fear. So at any rate, does that help?
Well, it sounds like I have to take a wingman or wingwoman with me to
Take me. I can talk about your book. Be like, Amy, meet me here.
Why do you think I take my husband and my sister everywhere with me?
Julie, I'll be your wing woman. I got you. Just be like, Amy, I'm gonna go over here. All right. Hey, have you tried?
Julie, we can be with you when you speak for Ken's.
Yeah, I got you, Julie. You don't need no wing.
Yeah, but now you guys will be on,
I know.
We encourage Amy and Sandy to listen in, be on the Zoom call. And so they can bring that up. Amy talked about Percy's book before. Percy talked about his book.
I did. I beat Percy to it. I got you, Julie. I got you.
Okay,
Yeah, there you go. So that's what you do. You can call it a wingman if you want. But it's really what it is, somebody that cares
Well,
enough.
actually, because of Julie's book, and Julie, I'll be glad to share this, but I own a copy of her book. I have not read it all the way through, but that book and hearing her talk about it and being there when she actually came up with the name for it, I now have that on my bucket list to go.
Yeah.
And I'm glad her book says I don't have to walk the whole 500 miles or however far it is, but I can do a bus or something. So anyway, so yes, we'll definitely be there to promote your book, Julie.
I got you. Don't even worry.
All right. The other thing that resonated with me, Ken, and I'll say this, not for myself, but as I said, I started this just barging into tight little groups of people speaking at receptions when I was a very junior officer. But then as I got more senior, I would see officers more junior to me standing around in corners with their friends talking.
Right.
And I would go up and say, oh, I'm so happy you're having a good time, but really, would you just take a few minutes and go talk to some of our contacts? Because that's why they were there. That it was a job.
Yeah,
It wasn't
you did the right thing. You're a fearless networker already. I love it.
As I said, that was for
work. I'm running the
That
fearless
was
networkers.
not for me personally. It was for work. It's
Sure.
easier to do it for.
Well, that's what it's all about. Yeah, that's it. Wow. I love it. Sandy, you sure you didn't set her up to be?
No, we've not done any teaching on networking.
No.
All right. Well, fantastic. Done a fantastic job.
Anybody else have a question for Ken? Julie, did you want to say something else?
Yeah, he could maybe talk about I don't know, there's an expression in what I used to do, which is public diplomacy, that the last foot is the most important. That is, you can get something to someone, you can talk about it, but if you don't get it in their hand or you don't, get it in their mind, it's all your efforts worthless. So it's the same thing I feel about my book. I can talk about my book and I can advertise my book and I can promote my book, but somehow if I don't get the connection with them, it still doesn't become a conversion, like a sale.
Yeah, and what I try to do is I'm always thinking how my book can help that person. That's the number one thing on my mind, especially when I have those one-on-one or in small groups, just like those officers that are, were they senior to you, you said, or junior to you?
The ones I would go over and gently push out of their corner were junior. Couldn't do that to a senior.
Yeah. Well, some senior people have a challenge too, networking. I like the saying about, how you can tell the litmus test of a leader is how many people, when you turn around, that are following you. So you had a lot of people following you only because how you approach the other person, thinking about them and how you can get them to go to do some things. And so that's very important. I just love it. That's great. So get them to take the last mile and go the last mile and buy your book is just simply living your book. I live as a fearless networker. I don't think I could have written this book if it wasn't it's part of my moral value. It's just part of my value. Number one thing I know I'm looking at the time. The number one thing that I value is respect. Respecting other people. If you respect, I think is greater than love, to be honest with you, because you're respecting, you're valuing them as a human being. You're valuing them as a person. So that's what I do. I think about the other person. Sometimes I like I said, sometimes givers give, you have to know your limits. I've actually refused to compete with someone that I knew I would do a better job, but they were a friend of mine. So I say, well, I'll let them go ahead and take this business. This lady that I was telling you about that was so afraid to introduce Mary Whitmire. Another friend of mine has been a customer of hers. I mean, she's been a client of my friend for over 30 years. And I could have been a client of that lady for over 30 years. But once she said that she was working with her, I said, okay. So I would not compete with her in that area, but if there was anything else I can do for the lady, I would do.
I love it. That's something I feel like not is lacking, but I think it, sets everybody apart when you have that mutual kind of respect for each other, especially when you're networking. I think it has.
Well, I can tell you guys seem to have respect for each other in this group, this Writers Guild.
Yeah.
It seems to be. Sandy, they put a good show on something because you guys seem to seem to be happy when somebody.
We're on our best behaviors for you, Ken. We're behaving.
Oh, is that what it is? Gee, I'm so naive, and I am.
No, I'm just joking. But Diane, you have a question?
First, I just want to say, wow, I could listen to you all night. I thought I was good at networking until you spoke, and I have so much to learn still. But I really appreciated that 80-20 because the listening is so important. But what I love so much about you is your values. And I hope if I go to your website, can I make sure I know when I can listen to your new radio show about, it was a radio or a podcast about Christianity?
Yeah, it'll be a podcast. Yeah, but yes, here's what you want to do. I'm getting that worked on right now. So this I'll let Sandy know 3 months ahead of time. So you guys can, because Sandy will promote me too,
Of course.
Yeah, she will.
Yeah. Wow.
And he shows up and speaks at any group. He's always come to any group I ever had and spoken, and he has never charged me once to speak. So Ken, we help each other.
That's right, we do.
And that's awesome. Thank you. I
only have 1 minute left.
Any final questions? Otherwise, Amy, I'm turning over to you to close things out.
Okay.
Not a question, just a comment.
Okay.
Just to say thank you, because networking is not exactly easy. And especially the upcoming generation. I was a youth group leader for 18 years, and I've seen a decline in it drastically.
Communications,
yeah, like we would be face to face with them during youth group, go home, and they would text us, and I'm like, I just saw you, why did you
hey, texting's easier, okay? Like if I can network on Zoom, that's one of the blessings that came out of this pandemic. Not that it's like a huge blessing, but I'm in my bubble. I can do this. Y'all see the real me in person. I'm the person at the buffet. Okay, you got to hang out with me there.
Well, I think she was talking about other things.
But Amy and I have this thing. We got each other. We know this. If we're somewhere together, chances are we're going to be together because both of us.
I do a workshop on that.
I do
how to work with millennials and social media network.
It's a trick. It's a trick.
It is. It's not easy.
What I do a lot of times when I go to book shows and stuff is I go around to the different authors and find out what they write. So there's usually two questions, and a lot of people in this group know that I ask them. One is, do you like to read? The second is, what do you like to read? Because I'm not going to talk to you if you don't like what I have. And so I will direct you to somebody who does. And
interesting.
The way I look at it is we're all in this together. So the more that I can help somebody else out, they can help me.
Yeah.
Another thing I do to kind of breach some of that is I'll do a book swap with them. That allows my book to get into their hands, their book to get into my hands, and then I put them up on social media and stuff when I get home. But that lets me kind of get to know the author a little bit better too.
Well, I might, if you don't mind, I might use that technique. If you don't mind me. I learned a lot of my stuff from listening to other people like you. So this book was written by other people
You get to know a lot of different authors, and I have like over 50 some books upstairs now that are signed because of the book swaps.
Right. Great. Wonderful. Love it. Well, it's after it's 8:01 on my two.
So Ken, how can they get a copy of your book?
How can they get a copy of my book? Well, I'm sitting here with my last 25 books.
Okay.
And you can just, I can mail it to them. So you can email me their addresses and names. I'll autograph. By the way, print your name, because I don't always understand the
Spelling and
spelling.
writing.
Yeah. And make certain that you get your address, and so I will mail it to you.
And how much are they?
My books are $19.95.
Okay.
And that's, and when you pay that, I'll pay for the postage.
I was going to say, does that include shipping? So, okay.
Yes, I'll pay for that.
Okay, well then we'll let everybody know and put that on the, Amy, we could put a notice.
And if
on
you don't
the
have, if you don't have $19.95, I'll take $20 and give Santa the note.
I love it. I love it. That's something I would say.
Sounds great. So thank you,
right.
Ken. I just, I am so excited that we have you and got a chance for you and I to connect again, and I can't wait till we have an
I
event.
always love it.
Absolutely.
Always love it when we connect. Thank you for having me.
You guys, will see you. Amy will see you on Friday. Be looking in the Facebook group for announcements. So that's a great way for you guys to stay connected to each other. And I did find a new, I'm going to post this, or Amy, did you, that group that I shared with you this week, they have all kind of book promotions. And one of the things I've just noticed is they have a lot of people that have podcasts or radio interviews, and they're looking for people. So I think that the title of the group is Writers and Authors.
It's something like that. I'm waiting for them to approve me so I can see your post.
Okay. Writers and Authors Promotions, I think maybe it is. Anyway, if you put a search in that with Facebook, you'll find it. Because when I found something, I tried to share it with Amy and it wouldn't let me because she wasn't in the group. And so I had to go find that group all by itself, and I just put in authors and writers, or writers and authors, and it immediately came up. So anyway, it's got a lot of opportunities for you to put your information in there. Like the one I was getting to Amy was somebody saying, I'm looking for people to be on my podcast. So you want to send your information if you're interested. Check out to see what kind of podcast and what their topic is. But anyway, stay connected to that Facebook group, so you'll get a lot of good info.
It is Writers and Authors Promotions. I'm looking at it right now.
Thank you, CJ, for confirming that.
Writers and Authors Promotion, Julie. I'll post it in the group right now.
So Ken, Julie had one last question that I'll ask you now instead of later, and that is, can she promote her speaking at your Rotary? And can other people, can visitors attend?
Oh yeah, visitors can attend, definitely.
Okay, Julie, I'm going to send you the link, and you can share it with your friends. Julie is a member of several writers groups connected with Rice University, so she's got quite a following over there, and plus her friends from all her years in the work as a diplomat working for the State Department. So she's got lots of good stories.
Yeah, well, fantastic.
Yeah. So we'll see you guys later this week.
Bye, everyone. Thank you, Ken.
Thank you. Thank you.
Bye, you guys.